Hi, this is Karin from the Huntley Library, and today I'm going to show you how to tie-dye a t-shirt in several different ways. We're going to grab some supplies and then we'll get started. For this project you're going to need two things primarily. Something to dye, like a t-shirt, and something to dye it with, like this kit that I have here from Tulip, which has several different colors of dye, and it's a one-step kit, so very easy to use. If you don't have a t-shirt, you can tie-dye something else, like a pillowcase or socks or pajamas, shorts. My recommendation is that whatever you dye be either on 100% cotton or possibly a cotton blend, but you'll want it to be primarily cotton. That should be the highest percentage, just because the dyes tend to stay faster on those types of materials. There are special dyes that you can get to that will dye synthetic fabrics as well, so do your research into that if you're interested in dyeing something that's got more synthetic fibers in it. So this is everything that came in my kit. I like using these kits because everything is included except for the water that you need to add to the different dyes and the thing that you're going to tie-dye. So everything is here. I've got 5 different colors plus extra in these little packets in case I need to mix up more of any dye. There's some instructions that also give some ideas for patterns that you can do and show you how to do those. And it also comes with a bunch of these gloves. This kit says that it can complete 30 different projects. I don't know how accurate that is. It depends on how big your projects are, I suppose, and how much dye you use for each one of those. It also has rubber bands too, which you can use to create some of the designs. If you don't have rubber bands, you can use string. That will also allow you to fold and make different designs on your t-shirt or whatever you are dyeing. So when I'm ready to start dyeing, I'm going to fill each of these dye bottles up to this line with water and then make sure that they're mixed really well. And the instructions that came with my kit said that I have about 45 minutes to use the dyes before they become less effective. So I will try and use them quickly once I'm ready to do that. If you're like me and you're starting off with a dry shirt and you want to wash that, these are brand new, so I do want to wash them before I use them. You're going to take care of that step first, and then we will meet back and start designing our t-shirts. For our first technique, I'm going to show you how to make a spiral. You want to lay your shirt out flat like this, and you can use either a wet or a dry t-shirt. Mine are slightly damp because I just washed them. Then you're going to pinch in the center and just start to twist. And this is going to start to form a spiral or a swirl in the middle of your shirt. And you want this to be relatively tight because when you add your rubber bands or your string, you want this to stay together. Okay, that's my spiral. So now I'm going to try and rubber band it. So 1, 2. We'll try and use 3 rubber bands to keep this all together. And 3. And if you think you need more rubber bands because your shirt is escaping its confinement, go ahead and add another 1 or 2. I'm going to put 1 more on here. Okay, and that is what we need to get started for the spiral. We're going to dye each of these different sections. You can use the same color or you can use different colors depending on how many colors you have and what you want your design to look like. So we'll do that in just a little bit. I'm going to show you some other techniques. So for this technique, I've got a new shirt out here. We're going to do sunbursts, and that's basically taking little sections of the shirt and using either your rubber bands or your string to tie them up, and this will create little circles on the shirt in your pattern. So you can decide where you want those to go. I am going to put one here, I think. And then just take your rubber band or your string and go around a few times. And if you want multiple circles, like concentric circles, you can pull up this piece that you already did, and then just below it, maybe leaving like an inch of fabric between the two rubber banded areas, you can go around again, and then that will make another circle. Whoops, if you don't break your rubber band, we'll make another circle around this circle that we started with. So that can look kind of interesting. So add a few more of those. Let's see, over here. And you can do as many or as few of these as you want. You can even combine different techniques on your shirt. If you don't have dye like I do, and you have maybe a dark shirt and some bleach, you could do a reverse sort of tie-dye and practice these techniques, but just use bleach to remove colors from different areas on your shirt or whatever it is that you're dyeing. We might get a couple of rabbits in here in a second to help me out. Hi, Hickory. So this process I started inside, just because my t-shirts were wet and I didn't want to take them outside where they'd get dirty and pick up all kinds of yucky stuff while I was working on them. I'm going to recommend that you go outside to do the dyeing part, or have a really well protected area in your house, just because this can be very messy. You're going to want to wear some clothing that's okay to get dye on, just in case that should happen, or be very careful with how you're doing your tie-dyeing. And you're going to want to do this over a surface that it's also okay to get the dye on, because more likely than not you will have a situation at some point in your dyeing where the dye drips off of your t-shirt or whatever. It doesn't completely saturate it, or it completely saturates it, and then there's excess dye and that's going to drip off. So whatever it falls on is going to be something that you're not going to want to care about it getting dye on. I'm using a lot of rubber bands here. And after you experiment with some of these designs, you may come up with one that you really like, and then maybe want to keep track of how you did it. I just like experimenting and seeing what happens with my patterns. Okay. Is there any spot that I have left out? Kind of. Let's try one on the sleeve here and see how that looks. It could be very interesting. Okay, so that is my sunburst attempt, and we'll see how that turns out in a little while. For my last technique that I'm going to show you, we're going to do stripes on this final t-shirt. And for this, you're just going to want to get your t-shirt, you can fold it kind of like this so that it's all one long piece. And then you're going to use your rubber bands or your string to make different sections. So this will make a little white area wherever the rubber band is, because it's going to block the dye from getting in there. And you can decide how thick you want your stripes to be. I am going to go for, what does this look like? Maybe 3 inches of stripes. I'm trying to be careful with my rubber bands so I don't break any more of those. And they don't have to be even. You could have thicker stripes or thinner stripes. There are a bunch of other ideas and techniques that you can try out too. If you were to Google tie-dyeing techniques, that would be one way to find a bunch of things. But the company that makes the kit that I'm using, Tulip, has a bunch of different resources on their website for how to achieve different kinds of techniques and designs with your tie-dyeing. One of the things they mention is a technique called ice tie-dyeing, which can create some really interesting looking designs. So that might be something you'd want to try or research. I'm not going to do it today, but maybe for the future. My rubber band broke again. Almost done here. Do I have room for one more stripe? I do. Okay, so that is our stripe design. I'm going to go hydrate my dyes and then we'll get started with the dyeing process for these. I've moved our work area outside, so now we're going to actually dye some of the designs that we made. First I'm going to put on my fancy gloves here to protect my hands. The dye in those bottles leaked out of the top just a little bit, so I'm going to have some purple and blue fingers for a few days. So there's my gloves. I recommend that you do the same if you want to protect your hands and you don't want to be tie-dyed like your fabric. Otherwise the dye will probably wash off in a few days once you've shed off a layer of skin on your hands. But if you don't want that to happen, protect your hands with gloves. So we will do our spiral first. That's the one we started with. So that's our spiral design. And I'm going to use all of the colors that I have on that and see how it turns out. I will start with the blue. If I can get the top off. There we go. Okay. And then you're just going to, with the bottles it's nice because you can apply the color kind of where you want it to be. And you can always add more as you're going along. So if you come back later on, or if you finish with all of your dyes and then you're like, well, that wasn't quite enough, you can always add some more. And I'm going to, I don't know if I want that to be white or black. We'll wait and see once I add the other colors. Here's our teal. And I think I'll do black next. Oops. And if you get some color in a spot that you don't want it to be, that's okay. Just consider it part of the process. It might turn out looking really good, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. Oops. And you can also blend colors too. If you have another mix or you have different colors than I do, you can blend some of them together to see what kinds of new colors you can create. And I think I'll leave this part white and see what happens with that. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. And it can be the same or different from how you did the first side. It's up to you. All right. So I'm pretty happy with how that is looking. So I'm just going to put that off to the side for a second. Okay, so we're switching now to our striped shirt, and I think I'm going to do a pink and black stripe for this one. So I will start out, here's our striped design and all of its little rubber bands. So I will start out with the pink on the end here. If you keep these bottles close to the fabric too, then there's less chance that the dye is just going to spray wherever. It'll get absorbed by the fabric before it does that. And then we'll switch to, I hope I got the black, black here. And back to the pink. Move that up so you can see it. And some more black. Oops. A black dot right in the middle of that. Some pink. And like I said, you can use whatever colors you happen to have and in whatever order you want to. The dye has to stay on for about 6 to 8 hours for it to really set and achieve bright colors. You can leave it on even longer than that if you want to. I usually do these, when I tie-dye, I usually do the dyeing and then I leave it for 24 hours for it to really set, and I protect the items I'm dyeing and my surfaces by sticking them in plastic bags during that period of time. So 1 item per baggie, just to let that dye set up really nicely so that you have bright, vibrant colors. Okay, so I've got one side of that done, and I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. I will let you do your own project while I'm doing that, so we'll meet back in just a few minutes. Okay, so we are back, and we're going to do the Starburst or Sunburst dyeing now. And for this one I am going to use, I think, green and blue for my different little ties here. And the colors on this one aren't going to matter so much. It's where the rubber bands are that's going to create the more interesting pattern. But I like green and blue, so I think that's going to be pretty. And if you want to leave a lot of white on your shirts or on your design, that is fine. Sometimes you just want to highlight the little circles, your patterns. And with the bottles, you could also draw different designs with your shirts too, and that might look cool. I'm gonna add just a little bit more blue. Okay, I think that'll be pretty. Should we add some purple? I feel like purple might be necessary. We'll just add it in a few spots. Put some there, and maybe there, and there, and here. Okay. Purple accents. Alright, and then you have the option of doing something on the other side if you want to. Otherwise this will be really light. So I'll add a little bit more blue And you can put this on however you want. If you were wondering about my setup here, I have old guinea pig / rabbit cage top that I'm using, which is metal and nice. It keeps the project up over the grass so it's not going to get dirty, but it also lets the dye drain out if I add a little bit too much there. And then I can hose it off afterwards, so the cleanup should, I hope, be pretty easy for me. Okay, and just a little bit of purple in some places. Okay, lovely. Okay, and then I said we were going to put these in bags so that they are protected from one another, and if I take them inside, then they will also be protect the surfaces in my house. That's important because I don't want to have everything dyed. So that's one. Oops. And here's our spiral going into a baggie. And then our striped shirt will go into a final baggie. I encourage you to play with different designs and different colors and see what you can create. I have a few more shirts and a lot of dye left, so I'm going to do some more, and then I will show you what everything looks like at the end. My t-shirts have finished marinating overnight, so I am going to cut off the rubber bands and see what the dye job looks like. So this is our spiral one. You can just snip right through the rubber bands to release that. Oh, looks like there's a lot of white space on there. Okay. But we got a really nice spiral too. I like it. Okay, and after you release your t-shirts from their bindings, you're going to soak these or rinse them with some water just until the excess dye runs out, and then you want to put them in the washing machine and run a wash with just these items, not anything else. And you want to do it on a hot setting to make the dye really set into the fabric. So that is our spiral. I'm going to grab some of the other ones. Here's our stripes. I'm going to cut the rubber bands again. This one I had wrapped tighter, it seems like. And when you're washing these, the first few times you'll probably want to do a wash that's just your tie-dyed items, just because you don't want any of this dye staining your other clothes or other things that you're washing. We're almost through. Come on. This one's really tight. Be careful not to snip through your fabric, or you will not only have a tie-dye, you'll also have some decorative holes. All right, so this is what my striped shirt looks like. It's pretty cool. I will show you what these look like too after I've washed and dried them. I just wanted to do the reveal here of what the dye looked like after we did this. It always turns out a little bit different. Okay, so that's the stripes. And we have one more. This is our Sunburst. This one has a lot of rubber bands on it, as you will recall. So we'll try and snip through those pretty quickly. I'm very excited about this one. I think the Sunburst and the spiral are my favorite two ways to tie-dye things. And maybe next time I will branch out and try some other things too. Whoa! You're gonna have some cleanup after you snip your rubber bands off if they are flying around like mine are. This is a fun activity that you can do with other people too, so if you're hanging out with friends or family members, you can tie-dye t-shirts and other things. I just like to use old shirts. I have old t-shirts around, so I use old t-shirts, and also like men's undershirts you can get pretty cheaply in packages of several, so you'll have multiple things to tie-dye when you decide to do it. Oh my gosh, are we almost done? We're getting there. Bear with me. I think this is the last one. And I had taken my gloves off before because, you know, I didn't want to wear them all night. And I picked one of these up out of the bags without thinking about it and immediately had blue and green fingers. So I recommend wearing gloves again for this part of it, because the dye is still not washed out of your tie-dyed items. Alright, so what does this one look like? Oh cool, so that's what one of the little sunburst spots looks like. Here's another one. Yep, and then here's one up by the shoulder. Very cool. Alright, so I am going to rinse these out and then put them in the washer, dry them out, and then I will do a final reveal of what everything looks like after all of those steps are done. Everything came out of the dryer and looks really great. The first shirt is our spiral, and you can see the spiral pattern is formed like that. And then this one is the sunburst that we did, and you can see some of the circles in different areas on that shirt. I'm going to point with my toe here so that I can show you everything. And then this is the striped shirt, and that turned out really interesting too. It's a little bit blue because I think I didn't get quite all of the dye out of the other shirts. So some of the white areas on these are just a little bit blue, and that may rinse out over time, or I may just have permanently slightly blue shirts. But that's okay. I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. So I hope that you'll be happy with your results too. Thanks for dyeing t-shirts today with me. I hope you had fun. For more fun activities and ideas, check out our website, www.huntleylibrary.org.